touchdown sucked into a vortex. No kicks.
Here's Drake Toll and Armstrong Sims.
Welcome back into the Petty Clinic Low T Bears Den. Happy Tuesday, everybody. 1 o'clock hour. Starting it out today with Jason King, SicEm365.com, talking Baylor basketball as Jared Butler waited till the last second to declare for the NBA draft yesterday, or 2 days ago, I should say. Jason, thanks for coming on. And Jared Butler, no surprise there for you, I'm sure.
Not really. I mean, I'm sure like all people that were following it, they were probably a little curious why he waited so long. But I mean, I think throughout the season, everyone kind of assumed that this was his last year, and understandably so. And I mean, you know, after everything he did, you just got to be happy for him and wish him well and thank him. You know, if you're a Baylor supporter, because wow, I mean, the memories he gave to this team, not just this season, but the previous two. I mean, I think, you know, in my mind, I mean, he's my favorite guard, might go down to the best guard in Baylor history, you know, and hopefully they'll find a way to, you know, retire his jersey along with several others. So, you know, I'm happy for him. And a lot of times too, with the draft, I mean, I remember at the end of last year, you know, I think when he was tinkering with the thought of leaving, one of the common thoughts was, well, you know, he kind of is who he is. You know, I mean, he's not really going to help his stock a ton by coming back. He could go, you know, and that didn't prove to be true at all. He tremendously, you know, helped his draft stock, I think, by coming back another year and you know, it really enhanced all the positive feedback he was already getting. And I think all the things that he had been told to work on, he worked on and got better at, and now is a potential first-round pick. So fingers crossed.
Jason, for you, I mean, you have a lot of these guys, even Max Asmith was one of the late ones to declare for the NBA draft, and Butler didn't do it until 2 weeks after Asmith from Oral Roberts did. Was it a surprise to you that Jared waited as long as he did? I know a lot of us were kind of left out on the hook wondering, what are the odds?
It was a surprise, you know, and it made me wonder, you know, was he seeking more feedback, what needed to happen for him to, you know, to kind of pull the trigger on it. I don't think he's the type that was looking for attention or trying to cause any drama. I think he was just being really, really careful. And, you know, obviously he heard good things about, you know, where he might potentially be picked and decided to go ahead and do it. I think he just wanted to be absolutely sure, you know, because I can see where it'd be hard for some guys. I mean, they think, wow, look at this season we just had and all the positive things that happened and how fun it was. And, you know, he could have come back and lived that all over again. And sometimes that's hard to pass up. But I think, you know, business wise, you know, it was probably time. And also just, you know, on the flip side of what I just said, I mean, it's, you know, if you come back, it's hard to live up to, it's hard to win a championship in the road, no matter who you are. So, you know, maybe he wanted to go out just with that ultimate high and not have anything that could have happened this season be a letdown.
Jason, and I know you mentioned it there, Butler being one of the greatest to ever lace him up for Baylor. Mm-hmm. And in what you've seen, you know, as I'm looking down the list, obviously I think Davion Mitchell down the stretch maybe had a better postseason or late season run than Butler this past year, but full body of work and his entirety of his career at Baylor. It's tough to argue anyone else being better in Baylor history. For you, I mean, do you give the nod to Jared Butler? Is it tough to not give it to Jared Butler as the best to do it for BU?
I really do. I do. And I think the term you used, Drake, was perfect, full body of work. I mean, the argument could be made that toward the end of this past season that the best player on the team was Davion Mitchell. And you know, I might go along with that. He was certainly playing the best at that point and was impacting the game so much on both ends. But I think you got to look back to and just what all Jared did for that program. I mean, let's just look beyond the stats and the numbers. I mean, you know, just the ambassador he was for the school, the leadership he showed, the way he carried himself, the vibe he brought to that locker room, the chemistry he helped form. I mean, I just think the overall package. I mean, I think Jared Butler, I mean, is not just one of the Baylor not only the best Baylor guard in history, but I think you have to put him out there with just some of the best names in that whole athletic department. You know, I mean, in Baylor sports history. You know, I mean, what he brought to that school, just in terms of and I've said this on your show a million times, that I mean, Baylor for so many years, people just wanted to focus on the negative aspects of Baylor, and even when positive things happened, people would still bring up negative stuff. You know what I mean? And now it's like finally, Baylor was able to march this kid out in front of America and put him on those talk shows all across the nation. And when they won, they put him on Good Morning America, whatever, and said, "This is the face of our school now, of our program. This is who Baylor is." And to me, that's what he brought to Baylor too. Besides just being a good player, he just really was a great face for that whole school.
Jason, I'm glad you mentioned that Jared as an ambassador and what that'll do for him going into the NBA with these with the scouts, GMs. I mean, he's the kind of guy that you sit down for an interview and he's going to be able to sell himself so well with what he's done on and off the court. And that reminds me, I mean, we haven't really talked since that I can think. We haven't really talked since the national championship. I know it's the last time we saw each other, and then even after that on the show, it was still sinking in that week post. For you now, I mean, a few months removed, just the entire run that Baylor made this last season, has it really sunk in fully? And kind of some of your thoughts and summary of what we saw from Baylor in the postseason as Jared Butler did cement that legacy.
Yeah, well, it still hasn't really sunk in to me. I mean, what's cool, though, is just, I have some Baylor gear that I wear occasionally. And just, if you wear a Baylor basketball shirt or something, people are coming up to you and either saying, "Wow, what a great run that was," or "Wow, I can't believe how good they were." And it was just funny because I remember going into that game. I don't know if you heard this, but people were saying, "Oh, Baylor Gonzaga, that'll draw a great ratings." Kind of sarcastically, you know what I mean? Like, who's going to watch these non-Power 5 schools? But man, like, just seeing the ratings that game drew and how many people watched it, how many common fans that still tuned in, even though it wasn't a Duke or Kansas or North Carolina or something. I mean, Baylor really, really made an impression, not just by winning the game, but with how they won that game. I mean, I even had some people say before that game, the main thing people are going to remember most from this Final Four is Jalen Suggs' shot against UCLA. I don't buy that at all. I mean, the Baylor winning that game in that fashion, to me, said a lot of things, not just about how good the team was, but to me it said a lot about Scott Drew's coaching and really kind of cemented him as a elite coach with how well he had that team prepared. It said a lot about the culture of Baylor's program now and what they've helped create. It said a lot about guys individually. What I loved about that game was, we talked so much about all year about Butler and Mitchell and Teague and Vital, but I mean, and people always kind of look, "Oh, but the front court's not, that might be a weak link." Flo Thamba impacted that game in a big way. JTT impacted that game in a big way. Every player in that rotation can years from now can look back at that championship game and say they made an impact. They helped win that game. Here's what I did defensively or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was something that was really cool about it.
Jason, moving into the offseason, there have been a lot of different storylines. We already talked about Butler. Matthew Meyer has been another one of those guys that folks have mentioned on the national scale. He's maybe the best NBA prospect on Baylor's national championship team. He just needs one more year. But it sounds like he might not even take that one more year. And if he hears enough good things from scouts, he could go now. From your perspective, what you've seen of him and then players past, when you think about what Matthew Meyer has done at Baylor, is his work finished? Or would coming back for another year behoove him?
I think it would definitely behoove him, and I think it would be a mistake for him to go. And I think everyone on the outside looking in, and I'm talking about scouts and analysts, would probably advise him to come back. But some guys just mentally, they kind of check out and they're ready to take that next step, even if they have to play in the G League or sit the bench for a while. Some guys are just ready to kind of move on, and I hope that's not him. I don't think that's what he'll do, but if it does, I do think he would probably get drafted in the second round and make a roster. And I think his upside is bigger than anyone probably on the team. He could be like a Sakatarian Prince or something. A guy that you could see good things from, kind of lurking, and then all of a sudden he has a breakout year. I think that could be him this upcoming season. At the same time, you also hope he doesn't hurt his stock. You hope that he doesn't start making foolish decisions with the ball and try to do too much and put too much pressure on himself, start taking bad shots and become too erratic, once he gets more of a role. So, but I think that coming back would be the best thing for him. And obviously all, Baylor fans are crossing their fingers because this is another top 5 team, in my opinion, coming back, especially if he's part of it. But he's just such a tough matchup for for other people. He's just such a unique player. You just don't see guys that big or that tall, at least, that have so many, that have so much in his arsenal in terms of just being able to dribble and move like he does, the wider range of shots that he has, whether it's a fall away or whatever. He's just got so much, in his arsenal, and I think he could really put it on display without so much pressure next year. I think a lot of times he played under pressure, like, if I take a bad shot, they're going to pull me out. If I make a bad pass, they're going to pull me out. I think he would be able to play with a lot more mental freedom this year, and we'd really see what he can do.
Jason, would you be surprised at all if Meyer comes back and ends up being a preseason Big 12 first team or even preseason Big 12 player of the year, just when you think about the potential he has, even though he hasn't started consistently yet for Baylor?
Knowing how the media operate, I would be surprised if he was the Big 12 preseason player of the year. I definitely could see him sneaking onto some Big 12 first team preseason list and things of that sort, second team at the absolute worst. Because I think, he did create a bit of a name for himself, and rightfully so during the tournament. So it's funny, though. Some of these preseason teams are such a joke. I remember a few years ago, it's a funny story, going into Butler's sophomore year, if you remember, he really played well as a freshman toward the end of that year, but had the 31 points at Allen Fieldhouse. I don't know. Since I was watching him every game, I was on to him. I was like, man, this guy's going to be the best guard Scott Drew's ever coached. I felt that after his freshman year. And so I was that year, as every year, I do the Athlons magazine. I'm the guy that picks the preseason all Big 12 team. So I did that for Athlons. And if you remember, everyone was picking Tristan Clark. Like he was on all these preseason All-American lists. He had gotten hurt, and was doing well before he got hurt. And I called him, and I had Butler on my team, and they called me and they're like, Jason, we're gonna switch this to Tristan Clark. I know you like Butler, but man, everyone seems to like Clark. And Andy Katz has it, and all that. So I'm like, all right, go ahead. They didn't trust me, see what happens. So sometimes I think people they all try to pick the same teams because everyone's scared of looking stupid. No one wants to take a risk. I remember that happening. And I texted that guy at the end of the Final Four. I said, don't you think you should have left Butler on that first team? He's like, you're right, I'm sorry. So,
Lo and behold, there Jared Butler was. Jason, you've got Davion Mitchell, who is looking like a top 10 NBA draft pick right now. He's going to have prospect to play as early as next season. Mark Vidal and Maceo Teague, from your perspective and what you've seen from college guys, I won't ask you to pick out a guy to compare those two that's in the collegiate or the professional game. But for both of those guys, do they have strong upside, in your opinion, when it comes to the professional game?
Just to be flat honest, I think it was going to be tough for those guys to play, to ever be like NBA standouts. Although I'm going to say this about Teague, like, he showed me a lot. I thought everyone's like, who was your surprise player last season? Teague, in a lot of ways, to me, it was Teague, just how good he was. I thought he went to an even higher level, did so many good things, was Baylor's best player there for a stretch. And, if it wasn't for that hitch in his shot, I think that's what really turned some NBA people off. Maybe not the best ball handler in the world in terms of just being a passer. If you notice with T, I think more than anyone on the team, the ball would kind of stick. You catch him dribbling around a lot with that. But I'm nitpicking here, but to me, those would be the limitations and why, if he doesn't make it in the NBA, the guy's going to make a ton of money overseas, for years if he wants to, and I think sometimes guys have a hard time accepting that that's what they have to do. But once they start doing it, they start getting rich, and they're overseas, and they're a star, and they're playing a lot, they're having fun. So if it comes to that for him, it's certainly not a negative at all. I know like a guy I used to cover at Kansas named Keith Langford. He's so dejected he didn't get drafted, didn't play in the NBA. Finally started playing overseas. He became the highest paid American player overseas, made over $15 million, $20 million playing over there. He's still playing over there, and he graduated in 2003. So actually 2005. So T could be a guy like that. And the same with Vidal. Vidal could make a ton of money playing overseas. He likes to compare himself to P.J. Tucker, which I see a lot of similarities there. The only difference is P.J. Tucker can really score the ball. And I think Mark struggles in that area at times just because he's not the best outside shooter. But, those guys will probably both get invited to NBA camps and play in the NBA Summer League, and they'll get a better gauge on where they are. I don't see them getting drafted, but they'll have a chance to make a team. And if they don't, that doesn't mean their career is over. I think both of them are going to make a lot of money.
Well, Jason, when it comes to the rest of this roster, the way it's going to move and shake and come together next season, James Akinjo coming in, and I'm sure Dale Bonner will be able to contribute off the bench, or at least give guys some good a warm body to see during practice. I look down the roster, and there's so many names with the class coming in, and then Flagler and Cryer. I mean, right now, when you look at the Akinjo, Flagler, Meyer, and then obviously you got Kendall Brown, JTT, and Flo Thamba. You're listing 6 guys there without even mentioning LJ Cryer, who could have been a probable second team guy going into this next season. That just shows the depth of this team. When you look across the depth, although it's way too early, what do you see? I mean, do you like what you see in comparison to what Scott Drew has had in years past?
I do. I mean, you hate to just get too optimistic because, I mean, again, it's so hard to A, win a Big 12 title, and B, win a national title. The best team didn't always do it, but this will be a team good enough to win the national title again, especially if that culture of toughness carries over. I mean, losing Mitchell and Vital those are big losses on the defensive end as well, and just the culture they help create. But if the guys that are back can help maintain that, I mean, just from a personnel perspective, sure, this team looks like another national contender without question. The guy that everyone's sleeping on, to me, is Cryer. I mean, there's so much talk about Akinjo, and rightfully so. There's excitement about Flagler, and rightfully so, and Meyer. But, man, I'm a big-time believer in the prospects of LJ Cryer. I just think, he's just from an offensive standpoint, I think he could be the best 3-point shooter on the team. From what I heard, he might have been last year. And if they were going to go out and have a 3-point contest in the practice, I heard he would win a lot of those contests. So I think he's going to be a big timer. Anytime what is he in? I always forget the stat, but I think if he ranks 3rd or 4th in the history of Texas high school basketball at scoring. Maybe that's just Class 5A. I can't remember, but look it up. It's in his bio. But anytime you're averaging 38 points a game or whatever it was in high school in the state of Texas where the competition is so good, that says a lot. So I'm excited about him in that whole backcourt, and Meyer, and initially I was like, man, they need more bigs, but I mean, we saw what they did with a short bench when it comes to bigs, so I think they'll be okay. And I think of the newcomers, the freshmen, I mean, I think Kendall Brown is going to be the guy you'll see a lot of. Langston Love and Jeremy Sohan, maybe have to kind of take a back seat their first year, which is fine, but definitely going to be deep and fun to watch once again.
Well, Jason, on the note with Scott Drew, and what he's been able to do at Baylor, we talked about the full body of work earlier, but even this last season, it felt like if there was ever going to be a time where Scott left, it would be right after that national championship when a lot of folks are throwing money at him. There was the Indiana talk, the Arizona talk, all those figures, and instead of Scott going to Arizona, he actually got Arizona's best player to come to him and go to Baylor. In your opinion, and this is my last question for you, from what you have seen, is it safe to say Scott Drew is most likely a lifer at Baylor?
Yeah, from what I've seen, absolutely. I heard Indiana didn't go after him, which is just ludicrous. Now, I don't think he would have gone either way, but I do. I think he's a lifer because I think that he is never – I think he'll always get what he needs in terms of money. Although I don't think that's at all what drives Scott, but I don't think that'll ever be an issue. I mean, to me, they're going to build a statue for that guy. They'll name something after him at some point. I mean, why leave? I think more, I think a lot of times you're seeing this with more coaches now. I mean, coaches are scared to leave good situations. I remember before Greg Marshall got in trouble at Wichita State, because I got along with him real well. And every year, schools like Alabama were calling, and NC State, Nebraska, K-State. And I was like, why would you stay at Wichita State? He's like, man, I'm making $4 million a year. They love me here. We're winning. We're selling out the arena. He's like, I could go to Alabama and fail. Just because the situation wasn't right. Scott's in a perfect situation at Baylor. He's got it rolling. He's got a new arena coming. people want to play now. Baylor's the cool school to go to now for a lot of guys. There's no reason to go, like, to use the cliche those coaches are using. There's no reason to mess with Happy, and I just can't see a scenario where he would leave, to be honest. But he's got so many years ahead of him. Yeah, well, I mean, who knows? I mean, I can see him coaching into his 70s. So we're talking about 20 years. A lot can change in those times. So you hate to just never say never, but from in the near future or the foreseeable future, I can't imagine him leaving.
Well, Jason, I got a bear game.
I think my last thing. I mean, Scott Drew, I think, has cemented his spot in the Basketball Hall of Fame too. He's won a title. I mean, and you couple that with the building job he did there and the difficult situation he took over. I mean, he's going to go in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Bill Self's in the Hall of Fame. He's won one title. You know what I mean? And I think he deserves. I'm glad he's in the Hall of Fame. Bill Self deserves it, but I mean, Scott Drew absolutely deserves it. That's going to happen.
Well, Jason, I got a Bear Games question for you today, and I gotta agree. I don't know how you could argue having Scott Drew in the College Basketball Hall of Fame, the Naismith Hall of Fame. I mean, what he's done at Baylor, the rebuild in itself is enough for that. Jason, Bear Games question of the day. We've been talking about today schools that you just don't love to see win. And I know it's tough for folks in media, beat writers, to say like, oh, I don't enjoy seeing so-and-so win, but sometimes it's a vendetta that comes from childhood, as mine is. Ole Miss. Anytime Ole Miss wins at anything, I'm just irked. For you, who's that one team that you just think, oh, man, I'd really love it if they didn't win at anything?
Yeah, well, my sentiments from that come from being a beat writer for so long and a journalist for so long. When, as you know, for a long time I worked at the Kansas City Star. My job was to cover the University of Kansas. And Missouri fans were just ruthless. I mean, it was, you hate to not like a school because of their fans, but I mean, their fans were just brutal. I mean, whether it was stuff they said to me on Twitter, on message boards, ways that I would watch them treat opponents, certain signs they would hold up. They're just the most obnoxious group of fans I've ever been around. And it just made me root for them to lose, not because I had anything against the coaches or the players who always treated me great. It was just those fans. I was just kind of funny to see them squirm after all the comments I would hear. And to this day, I take a little delight whenever I see them lose. And plus, I mean, I hate to say it, but all these media members that for the past 7, 8, 9 years have just loved to needle Baylor and take shots at Baylor and say Baylor go to Baylor and all this crap. I mean, half of them went to Missouri. So, so it's kind of funny to see that as well.
Wow. Well, Jason, I'll tell you what, as someone that grew up an Arkansas fan, they tried to create that fake borderline rivalry with Missouri, and you can't manifest a rivalry out of nothing for the sake of money. So Missouri's on the top 10 list, but not quite moving all the way up yet, but I'm sure I'll get there one of these days.
Well, the good thing is they're not really good at anything. And, some years they're mediocre at certain things. So they haven't had a lot of bragging rights. And when I was covering Kansas would school them pretty well every year. And it even got to a point where they were beating them in football during the small time frame when Kansas was good at football. So, yeah.
07, baby. Gotta love that 07 season. Well, Jason, I want to thank you for coming on and giving us perspective on this basketball team that Baylor's coming, this basketball season they're coming off of, and the team of guys that have a couple of pro prospects in there and in the mix, possibly going NBA, overseas, just making a living out of basketball after a national championship victory. Always great to get your perspective, and we're going to the off season. Hopefully some more crazy stuff will happen and we can do it again.
I hope so. My last comment is I just thought of this as when we were talking. How cool is it that, for years people said Baylor has no business being in the Big 12. They'll never compete. And Richards got him in. It's just a joke. And now here we have 2 basketball coaches that will be in the Hall of Fame because of what they accomplished at Baylor. Kim Mulkey, obviously already there. Scott Drew went. I don't know. That's pretty cool. Because I just remember for years when Baylor was sucking at everything, and all my friends would just, take shots, and just Baylor was everyone's little doormat. You know what I mean? And now here we are talking about 2 Hall of Fame coaches because of their accomplishments at Baylor. Pretty cool stuff. So
it's the equivalent to Kansas football in 20 years winning a national championship and having a Hall of Fame coach. That's a crazy thought.
It really is.
Not as crazy like that. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's so comparable. That in itself is unbelievable in the way to put it like that. But Jason, thank you again. Always a pleasure.
All right, man. Take care. Thanks.
Again, that was Jason King of SicEm365. Drake Toll alongside Armstrong Sims, Andrew Robertson, Marquise Cooley, and Jack McKenzie. We talked basketball there for a little bit. We're going to go back to baseball. Steve Rodriguez met with media yesterday and talked about just almost immediately after the selection